So let's just jump right into it, my friends. And today, what we were going to be talking about is stress, anxiety, and pain. Of course, none of us have any of those. And really understanding how can we look at these things in a different way. One of the things that we talked about in the video, the little introductory video, is I said that there's one thing that is common to all of these conditions, whether it's stress, whether it's anxiety, whether it's pain, or even whether it's sleep issues. There's something that is underlying all these three. And what I'm going to suggest that one thing is the mind. So in any of these conditions, whether it's stress, whether it's anxiety, whether it's pain, or it's in sleep, there are two approaches, two ways that we need to work. The first way is with the physical body. We experience stress in the physical body. We experience anxiety in the physical body. And of course, we experience pain in the physical body as well. But that is not the only part of the story. All of these have one thing that can make them better or worse. And that one thing is mind, our thinking patterns. And what's so beautiful and unique about yoga and its applications to these conditions is that it can offer not just alleviating the physical symptoms of stress or anxiety or pain, but helping us relate differently at the mental level to our stresses, to our anxieties, and to our pain, to reduce the amount of severity that we experience. So really, to me, this is the best of what yoga can bring to all of these conditions that we suffer from, is recognizing that there's a strong mental component as well as physical component. And guess what? Yoga therapy is able to address both, not just the mind, not just the body, but both at the same time. So what I'd like to do is have a closer look at all three, see how the mind plays a role, and then how are we going to work with it? What are some tools, practical tools to work with any one of these or all of them? So let's come up here and beginning with stress. So of course, we experience stress at the level of the mind. We experience it at the level of the body, but consider that how we are dealing with the external stressors coming to us. We've all got pressures coming in from the outside, whether it's a boss, whether it's long hours, all of these things are coming in from the outside. There's not much we can do about them. But what makes the difference, what increases or decreases our stress, is how we are interacting with those stressors within our own mind. So let's take a boss, for example, or a long day at work with a boss. And let's say that you are spending 8 hours a day with that boss who is stressing you out. That stress lasts for 8 hours. But with our mind, we can take that boss to dinner. We take them to bed. We wake up with them in the morning, and now instead of having that boss and those stressors lasting for 8 hours, they can be lasting for 24 hours a day. And as a result, what happens is that what should have been a time for you to be under demand, under some pressure, and then to totally release, we're now under constant low-level pressure, constant low-level stress. And it keeps us in that fight or flight response. The body gets the message, I can't let go. I can't let down. It's not safe to let go. I have to be on my guard. And because the body doesn't get the message that it's okay to fully release, the body never fully repairs itself. It never fully restores itself. And so just like a car, you could have the best car in the world, but if you don't take the time to repair it, to maintain it, to take it into the shop and take care of it, that car will eventually give out. And this is exactly what happens with our physical body. The body gets the message, I have to go, I have to go, I have to be on alert, I have to be on guard because that boss and that situation might come get me. We don't realize it, but we're carrying it all the time. And therefore, the body starts to build up these stressors and eventually becomes stress-related disease. And believe it or not, 80% of the reason we go to a doctor is because of some kind of stress symptom. 80% of the reason we're visiting a doctor is because of stress. So that's a big deal. We know that the mind now has a part to play. The second one is anxiety. And interestingly enough, all of these are actually related to each other. So one way that we could understand anxiety is that often anxiety begins under states of stress. So the body is put under long-term, consistent, unending stressors, often induced by our own mind. And at some point, the body begins to learn to go to this fight or flight response, even without the external demand. So if we have been worrying about money and bankruptcy and how am I going to pay the bills and all of this stuff, at some point, the worry no longer needs to be there. Your body has just learned to go into these anxiety responses, shallow breathing, beating heart, sweats. Nothing may have even triggered it. It's just become an automated response in the body. So with prolonged stress comes anxiety. But in addition to that, there's again this strong mental component. And what's actually been shown by research with evidence is that what is called irrational beliefs and ruminating thoughts. Ruminating thoughts means thinking about something over and over again, telling ourselves that story that it's not really realistic, but we tell it to ourselves. The way that we are talking to ourselves all the time can actually create anxiety, trigger anxiety, and prolong anxiety. Right? So what are some of the stories that we tell ourselves? I have to get it done. It's all on me. If I don't do it, it won't happen, right? I'm alone in this world. And what begins to happen is that the more we tell ourselves the story, the more we engage the mind, it can actually trigger this anxiety response in the body. So if we want to work with yoga therapy with these conditions, at least these two so far, we need to work not just at the level of the body where the stress response is showing up, we also need to learn how to work at the level of the mind. Well, what about pain? Pain seems like, well, that's just physical pain. But what is shown with science and what yogis would verify is that even what we call physical pain has a very strong psychological component to it. So the very first thing that I find really interesting about pain is that people who have high anxiety actually have a greater reaction to pain. So the more stress we have, the more we tend to develop anxiety. The more anxiety that we have, the more it will actually trigger pain and worsen the pain that we experience. Right? And this pain can be increased or decreased based on how we think about the pain. So when when you go to the doctor and you get a needle, like an injection, what has actually been scientifically shown is that if you're anticipating the pain that is coming, you will actually feel more pain. If you're tensing up around the pain, if you're going, oh my God, this is going to hurt, it's actually going to hurt more. And if you relax around the pain, it's going to hurt less. This is why many pain medications that people take don't necessarily reduce the pain. They reduce our reaction to the pain. They help us relax around the pain. But with yoga and yoga therapy, we can actually do this without medication. We can learn to soften and relax around the pain. Another interesting study about pain is that actually the more we believe we have control over pain, the more control we actually have. Isn't that interesting? The more you believe you can control your pain, the more you can control your pain. The more you believe that you cannot control your pain, the less you're able to control it. I find that fascinating, right? So what we're seeing is that the body and the mind are a continuous mechanism. The way that we're thinking about things, the way that we're holding on to things, the way that we chew on things can increase our stress. It can increase our anxiety, and it can even increase the amount of pain that we feel. So then what are we going to do about it? So typically what we will do is we will tend to, all of these create sensation in the body, right? So that boss, those stressful experiences are creating pressure in the body, pressure in the heart, pressure in the throat, pressure in our gut. Anxiety creates pressure, sensation in the body. Even when nothing out there is happening, it is now being triggered from within us. Our body has just learned to go there. Pain creates a certain kind of pressure. It's uncomfortable. And what we typically try to do with all three of these is we try to push it away, right? I try to make the source of the pressure stop, the boss, the job, right? I try to stop the anxiety. I try to stop the pain. And for most of us, it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense. But what yoga therapy and this approach to yoga therapy would say is that rather than trying to resist the sensation, what if I were to listen to what it has to say? This sensation is the body's way of talking to us, right? Now I'm going to say this again. Instead of resisting the sensation, what if we were to listen to what that sensation is telling us? Right? This is often, when we're in pain, the last thing we want to do, right? When we're in stress or anxiety, we don't want to feel what that sensation has to tell us. We want to make it stop. But what if the way to make it stop is to listen to the message it's trying to give us? Pain is a messenger. It's your body's way of trying to tell you, pay attention to me, right? So the way that the body transmits its messages is not through language, but through sensation. And we need to learn how to listen to the messages of the body if we want its messages to get softer, if we want them to get quieter. But very often what we do in the midst of stress or anxiety or pain is we ignore those messages. And what happens is that what starts as a very small symptom, a little bit of pain in your gut, a little bit of heart racing, a little bit of headaches, whatever it is, if we don't pay attention, the volume will go up. The symptoms will get worse. And over time, the more that we ignore it, the volume of the body will get louder and louder and louder until finally we have no choice but to pay attention.